12 wins, 15 losses, and one detail nobody can ignore anymore. The ninth inning has become unstable ground. Because it's not just about losing games. It's how they're losing them. Tight score, bullpen called, and that feeling hits before the first pitch is even thrown. You already know what might happen. And it happens, again. Jeff Hoffman wasn't removed from the closer role for no reason. A 7.59 ERA in 12 appearances isn't just a bad number. It's a flashing warning sign. The kind that changes how the entire team operates. Because when the closer can't close, everything else starts to crack. And that's where the question starts getting louder. Not just in the media, but among fans who actually follow this team closely. Is it worth going after a guy like Riley O'Brien right now? Because look at the contrast. On one side, a bullpen trying to reorganize in the middle of the season with undefined roles, shaky confidence, and a recent track record that doesn't hold any lead. On the other, a reliever with a 1.26 ERA, 7 saves, 16 strikeouts in 14 appearances. Control, efficiency, results. It's not just good, it's elite in this current sample. And that completely shifts the conversation. But there's a point here that needs to be faced head-on. No romanticizing any trade. We're talking about April. April, teams don't usually give up pieces performing at that level this early, especially when the player's value is climbing with every outing. So why is this name even coming up? Because the situation in St. Louis creates an opening. The Cardinals are in a rebuild. That changes the logic. A team now focused on immediate contention can absolutely consider selling high. And selling high means exactly that. Turning a peak value asset into future pieces. But then the other side of the equation kicks in. Toronto isn't rebuilding. Toronto is trying to stay alive. And here's the detail that changes everything. If you pay a high price for a closer in April, you're basically admitting two things at once. First, the problem is urgent. Second, you believe this roster still has a real chance to compete. But does it? Because 5 wins in the last 7 games help? Sure, it gives you a little breathing room, shifts the mood a bit, but it doesn't erase a 12-15 start. It doesn't erase the reality of one of the toughest divisions in baseball. And it definitely doesn't erase the structural inconsistency this team has shown so far. So what exactly does adding an elite closer fix? The symptom or the disease? Now, let's take a closer look at Riley O'Brien. 31 years old. Not a prospect. Not a project. A finished product. He had a solid 2025 season. 2.06 ERA, 45 strikeouts in 42 games. And now, breaking out in 2026. That's not random. That's sustained development. But it also raises another uncomfortable question. Are we seeing his peak? Or just a spike? Because relievers might be the most volatile position in baseball. One dominant year, one good year, one completely inconsistent year. And that directly impacts trade value. You pay for what he is today, while taking on the risk, he might not be that in 3 months. Now think about the Cardinals side. If they're rebuilding, and they have a 31-year-old reliever with rising value, why wait? Why not turn that into prospects? Depth? Pieces that actually fit their timeline? It's the kind of cold, rational decision teams make all the time. And when that happens, it creates a bidding war. It's not just Toronto interested. Any contender with bullpen issues will be looking at this kind of profile, and then the price goes up. Now hold on to this for a second, because the discussion isn't just, is it worth it or not? The real question is, what does it cost? And more importantly, what are you willing to give up? Because there's no such thing as a painless trade. If Toronto really wants to get into this race, they're going to have to offer something meaningful. And that brings up the classic dilemma. Do you sacrifice the future to try to fix the present? Or do you accept the risk and try to just internally? Because there's an alternative path that almost nobody talks about. Reorganize the bullpen. Redefine roles. Give other arms time to step up. It's not the flashy move. It won't make headlines. But it's the kind of adjustment teams make before paying a premium on the market. But here's where the human element comes in. Confidence. Bullpens run on it. When the group feels like there's no reliable guy at the end, everything changes. The 8th inning gets heavier. The 7th starts to matter more. The manager starts making more conservative or more desperate decisions, and that shows up on the field. So bringing in someone like O'Brien isn't just about numbers. It's a message to the clubhouse that the team still believes, to the fans that the front office is acting, and to the rest of the league that Toronto isn't standing still. But a message without results doesn't hold up a season. Now stop for a second, because there's a detail here almost nobody is talking about. What if the problem isn't actually the closer? If the team needs a perfect closer just to hold games, that already tells you something. It means games are too close. It means the offense isn't creating separation. It means the rotation isn't dominating the way it should. So, does adding an elite closer mask that? Or just win a few extra games while everything else stays the same? Because a closer usually enters with minimal margin. He doesn't create the lead. He protects it. And that matters, but there's a limit. If the team depends too heavily on that, something earlier is already broken. And that's where the honest analysis lands. Does O'Brien fit? Yes. Does he make the team better? No question. Does he solve the main problem? Maybe not entirely. Now look at the direct impact. Short term, you stabilize a ninth inning, win games that are currently slipping away, take pressure off the rest of the bullpen. Mid-term, it depends on his consistency. If he sustains this level, he becomes a central piece. If he regresses, he's just another expensive arm. Long-term, it depends on the price paid. If it costs meaningful prospects, the impact could be felt for years, which leads to a very direct, almost brutal summary. Toronto gets immediate stability. The Cardinals get future value. That's it. But baseball is rarely that simple, because timing matters, and the timing of this potential move is strange. April isn't the trade deadline. It's not when teams are in full desperation mode. So any deal now tend to be more expensive because the seller isn't under pressure and the buyer is. And that leads to the uncomfortable question, is Toronto desperate or just concerned? Because those are two very different things. Desperation makes you overpay. Concern makes you evaluate. And that line gets thin when the bullpen keeps costing you games. The fan base is already feeling it. Social media, comments, analysis, it all sounds the same. Frustration mixed with urgency. Nobody wants to watch more games slip away in the final inning. But there's also that hesitation about making a big move too early and regretting it later. And that brings us right back to the starting point. The ninth inning is a real problem, not theoretical. Real. And real problems demand a response. The question is, which response? Going after Riley O'Brien is aggressive. It's direct. It's an admission that waiting isn't an option. But it's also a high-stakes bet at a point in the season that doesn't define everything yet. Maybe the better question isn't should they trade. Maybe it's, if they don't, how much is that going to cost? Because every game lost late matters. In the standings, in confidence, and later on, it might matter for the entire season. Now I want to hear from you. Do you pay the price and fix this now? Or hold, adjust internally, and wait for the market to develop? Because one thing is already clear. This problem isn't going away on its own. And pretending it will might cost more than any trade.